Welcome, Commanders! Today, we want to know your thoughts on the Battle of Mount Fareh. Leading the Abbasid dynasty is General Hutt, a very aggressive player, and I don't know what has made them angry in life, but we should be thankful that they are contained in Age of Empires 4 for now. Rallying the English is General Fanqie, and I've seen a little Fanqie enough to make me a fan, enough to know that they won't tolerate being bullied like so many of Hutt's opponents have been. Now, if you've watched Age of Empires show matches, you know that there were more of kind of a demonstration than a match. Well, none of that here. These are two top generals who believe their Age of Empires life is on the line. Feel free to pause the screen and have a read of the Civ rundown. The Abbasid dynasty have strong anti-cavalry in the form of camels, and their landmark really allows them to shape how their early game and late game will be. The English, by comparison, don't have a lot going on. They're simple people, but they like their farming, and they aren't afraid to defend their right to farm. Their network of castles will increase their defensive capabilities, and we'll see how that plays out against Hutt's guaranteed aggression. Now, as the early game occurs, shout out to some folks in the Age of Empires 4 Discord. Whilst I've been working in the dark production room, some of you folk have been an absolute pleasure to talk with whilst we wait for the release of the game. So, Erexus, Oddball, Dowie, Nobunaga Oda, Lancer, and also shout out to Ashley Lynn and the moderator Tim, who allow it to be the fun place it is. And if you're looking for more information about Age of Empires 4, don't hesitate to jump in now whilst you watch. So, early game, the hunt for food. Both commanders have deer right next to their town center. Both will surely collect that. And we've got marketplaces in the corners, possibly the safest locations to be for traders, and the Abbasid do get bonuses on trade once they construct the trade wing for their House of Wisdom. In the words of Hutt, they like the economic wing first. The reduction in villager cost is so valuable early on, 50% reduction in the cost of villagers. It makes supporting multiple town centers more easily manageable. Hutt's already looking around Fankie's side of the map. They are interested in their base now, but they also scouted around the base earlier, investigating where Fankie's natural resources are. The Council Hall going down now for Fanqie. They probably want to get some longbow out early from here. And the House of Wisdom is constructed, and that is the economic wing being worked on. Both should hit around the same time. Back to the part about scouting though, discovering the area around Fankie's location, that's valuable information, and they do see the Council Hall as they skip by with their horse and sheep. And later on, it's going to be kind of hard to scout out the opponent's base, not just because of how intense commanding an army and managing a populace is, but the enemy typically doesn't want you sniffing around their town that has expanded since the early game. And Fanqie hasn't yet seen much of Hutt's growing village. They've just got a bunch of sheep that the scouts will high five, and so will the sheep. Why not? And I always like to try and get inside the players' heads. Try and think about what they're thinking, as opposed to always looking at things of like, oh, well, they should have done this, or this was the wrong thing to do, and this was the right thing to do. And I've watched both Fanqie and Hutt, and I think Fanqie isn't too worried at the moment. They've been sweeping the map with their scout from north to south, back and forth. They're going to return with sheep and then probably take a look at what the Abbasid dynasty has in store for them. I think they were just far more concerned with trying to accumulate sheep, perhaps. Maybe just feeling strong about the fact that their town centers fire twice as many arrows, and they'll be ready to defend with some longbows too, I bet. As you might already know, I am English. That is to say that I am from England. I don't believe that we are strong at defending. We are passive-aggressive. I think that describes us more accurately. Hutt is getting some stone, which says they are very close to popping out another town center right in line with their aging up. Hutt's been keeping an eye on that council hall. He also sees the stone being mined and villagers being pulled to get that council hall up. And think of the psychological assessment there. When you see villagers rush out an important structure, you could look at that and say, are they scared? Or are they just prepared? Fanqie now sees the northern side of the Abbasid dynasty and striking some matches into their homes. One of the interesting properties of sand is it doesn't catch fire, it just comes back as glass. And both players, second town center definitely planned. Hutt won't be attacking super early, like I have seen them dominate battlefields before. But right now, they will be having military considerations. Fresh foodstuffs, almost researched for Hutt. Now, he can order villagers with half the meat, which could be taken out of context horrendously. Half meat villagers? Just in time for Halloween. And the location of this second town center, really close to the first, right next to wood, kind of feels very defensive for Hutt. There's the second town center for Fanqie too, next to wood and berries. Hutt with a second scout, because once you've acquired all the map information, the next thing you want to know is if your enemy is coming. And Fanqie at the moment won't be coming. He's got a single longbowman standing on guard and interesting building positions as well. It's almost like he's going to be trying to make this choke point even more choke pointy. This is basically the natural front gate. Bit of scout warfare. Nothing good comes from scouts fighting each other. Both commanders yet to run out of meat, and already some deer being harvested and then being reconstructed into new additional villagers. Don't tell the villagers that though. It kind of ruins their whole sense of being, as if they aren't already vulnerable enough. They're already picked on plenty. These villagers, however, are very lucky. So far, no one's been raided. Longbow are out. just longbow, not longbow men, just longbow against two scouts. That's it, you gotta run back. Don't look behind you, just keep running. Don't worry, viewers, it's not a 7-minute, 30-second longbow rush like you maybe have thought. Scouts aren't the only unit that can gain vision. Fanqie simply runs back, scout swords, extremely blunt, might even be some form of early 1800s plastic. And, they're here to scout, not to clout. Even though the villagers were disrupted ever so slightly, to fire some additional arrows, it was worth it. They did get a scout from that. And then back to harvesting sheep. The longbow moving out again. And I'm trying to figure out what the purpose might be, because I don't think that they're going to be able to do anything in the numbers that they're in, which is 1 so far. So let's talk about the longbow, and I think it's best if we compare to the standard archer. Longbows cost a little more food, but for that 10 extra food, it's almost a 50% increase in range and an extra damage per attack. The longbow also takes only 8 seconds to train, some intensive training, inside the council hall, compared to 15 seconds elsewhere. We've got a few attacks going on. It seems like someone had a little accident. A scout was mistaken for a deer, and I'm afraid that another industry will be shut down after finding horse meat where it doesn't belong. I also see farms are starting to pop up. English farms cost 50% less wood, and their efficiency is increased near a mill, but that one's near a town center, so it doesn't get a bonus. Another striking down of an archer, but this time not with a scout, but a lancer. I feel Hutt has shown a preference for leading cavalry in the battles that I've seen them participate in, and their economy should be pretty strong to start amassing an army. And cavalry are the perfect counter to longbowmen. Ranged units take additional damage from cavalry, and Fanqie, they cannot be over-reliant on their unique unit. The alarms are ringing. We also saw 2 stables go down, so Fanqie will match cavalry with cavalry. Hutt does see this, and I expect we'll start to see the action pick up now. A scout chasing. They ought to be careful, though. they will discover that there is more cavalry out there, and it might be a good idea to keep those alarm bells ringing. The English are coming. No, wait, we're the English. Well, who the flip is coming then? It's HuT, and he is almost getting rid of that scout, but I think the scout is just quick enough to make it back to the town center in time. One of the light cavalry goes down, and I think they will call off that attack. Some villagers were pulled away. What is going on here, though? Double palisade walls on the northern side and the southern side of the map next to the sacred site. Keep those deer out, that's what I say. So could HuT be looking to, one, deal with the wolf, but two, go for a sacred victory? Or maybe it's just a these bloody wolves! Oh, heck with the wolves! This cavalry army grows bigger by the minute, pressuring Fankie's subjects off of the gold. Fankey orders the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and they're gonna have to be if they expect to win. They were quite outnumbered, and fighting defensively is the directive given. The oppressed, yet otherwise extremely loyal subjects can return to gathering gold for the kingdom. And oh, we have a white tower here, positioned to the side of this choke. The white tower is basically a keep. This isn't where Fanqie is vulnerable at the moment, but that doesn't mean that they can focus their attention elsewhere. Nothing is going to be coming from that direction for the time being. Fanqie has to match this invasive force and shift them away from their lands. The gold, once again, needs to be reclaimed. The kingdom's safety looks like it will be facing constant incursions for the time being. General HuT might have access to the stables. There isn't anything protecting them at the moment. And what will Fanqie's reaction be? They did get to the castle age before HuT, but will that help them? What can they bring? The villagers have gone to find another source of gold. Whilst these buildings get torched, Fanqie postures a bit with her own cavalry, but the numbers don't add up in their favor, and I suppose they can juggle the threat a little bit and delay the destruction. But as we can see, Fanqie's real trouble at the moment is that they need a way of bringing out more units. HuT still relentless in reinforcing their army. Another 5 light cavalry move forward, and that town center is not occupied to fire more arrows at the moment. This tells HuT that the villagers, they're somewhere else. And do you remember that scouting earlier on to find all the other resources around Fanqie's base? Where might those villagers have gone? Very interesting to see Fanqie is chasing this. I'm surprised that HuT hasn't gone and just turned on them, but he's more interested in finding out where those villagers have gone. They do discover that the White Tower is here. That is something to be threatened by. Fanqie has done an excellent. Their gold is protected, and there was a marketplace there too. I will say though that it looks like a lot of villagers are on that gold. Now, those poor laborers might want to unionize as they have to go around each other, but that's not a problem. Wow, this is a lot of stables out for HuT. I don't think any amount of gold that Fanqie gets to make special purchases with is really going to bring out the units they need. Heading back into battle, HuT destroys that second stables and then clears off to the south side of the base. We have a knight out here for Fanqie. Knights are strong together. Statement would hold true if there were more knights. Also a scout mixed in there. I do like mixing scouts in with cavalry, just for that vision. You do have to be really careful not to order them into battle. Seems like Fanqie does want to chase this all the way around. HuT gathering more information. Oh wow, that is a really tight quarter to funnel through. I'd say GG on map generation here. I count 1 casualty. Not bad for HuT. Even though the chase goes on, it seems like Fanqie will get a moment of respite in their base. A knight just randomly popping out from this direction stabs another. That's 2 casualties. And the chase continues into the stealth forest. those bloody wolves! Vision lost on Hutt's cavalry, but Fanqie commands them to follow them through the thicket and all the way to their base, but the numbers just don't add up. Now the camels are here, and they will go straight into battle. Fanqie cannot compete against this. They're gonna regroup, and you can see the size of Fanqie's force has increased adequately, but it's not just size that matters. Yeah, horses are big, but camels are a different kind of magnitude. They cause enemy cavalry to deal less damage, whilst also dealing more damage to the enemy's cavalry. Hutt first shut down Fanqie's hope of approaching with longbows. Now Fanqie's gone cavalry, and the Abbasid dynasty's camels ride on in. So Hutt has gone for the military wing as their second choice, but Fanqie does seem to be at least somewhat threatening Hutt's advances. That white tower is something to fear, and we even have a sprinkled out, a very long-range anti-siege unit, but who says you can't use it against camels? Of course you can. I sound like a salesperson. I'm not here to judge what you pointed at. So Fanqie has endured, and now is the time to invest in their future, negotiate a cunning infrastructure plan which will allow them to wage wars for aeons to come, for a bright future of the great kingdom of a united England. It's a name work in progress. Hutt going for gold at the bottom of the map. And this is the thing about being aggressive. When you are constantly attacking, the map is basically yours for the taking. And if you're always on the defense, you can kind of find yourself locked in place and eventually starved of resources. So many camels just suddenly appearing, and they go straight for the spring elves under the fire of the white tower. Even some villagers are passing by to shoot the camels up close. Someone should teach them how to bow. Villagers piling into the white tower. They will very slowly chip away at those camels. It is a large force, and it's the only thing that really seems to stand in Hutt's way. So he takes out the spring elves. There goes the last one now. There's a few straggling villagers that climb into the white keep. The camels just move over towards the town center to deal some devastation to the farming community, and it seems like some of them would rather die than to have their subsidies taken away, and Fanqie isn't moving anyone away who isn't an essential town center arrow operating worker. If you can farm, you will bloody well farm. Hutt's taken losses, but this has been extremely disruptive. Take a look at that gold per minute income. Gold is important to Fanqie's current composition, and those spring elves, they were 200 gold each. Fanqie once again built the stables kind of on the outer edges of the defensive perimeter that they've made, and it's kind of interesting for two reasons. One, that this has already happened, and two, it does actually create a really small choke point. And I mean, it's just wedged in between the wood and the stone. You could quite easily block that off. And when your enemy is great in numbers, funneling enemies means that they can't all fight at once, which can absolutely give you an edge. Wow, more spring elves out here. Spearmen, I think, would be fantastic. It would force Hutt to reconsider their army composition, another building creating kind of a makeshift wall in itself around that white tower. The Abbasid dynasty is going on an adventure. Oh, it's just to the forest. Don't you hate it when your king gets you all hyped up, but at the end it's just more resource gathering? Come on, we're gonna go to the park. You're gonna make me chop more wood, aren't you? Sure, let's do that. Hutt's got the extra melee damage upgrade from the blacksmith, also extending their village of chaos to the west. They are ready for another attack. Fanqie manages to get some of the horsemen off by themselves with the spring elves all the way at the back, but look at the surround. Fanqie is strong. Those crossbowmen, they are an excellent choice right now. The HuT is on the run. They do have a few units just to the north. They will regroup, turn around, and fight. Fanqie won't fall for the bait. The Spring Elves do move up with the crossbowmen, and suddenly they just seemed like they were in a slightly vulnerable position. HuT almost went for them, but then turned back around on the cavalry. Fanqie reinforcing with horsemen, HuT with caval. Sadly, the power of the Spring Elves and crossbows doesn't appear to be enough. HuT is pushing through. Spring Elves probably won't be able to escape here. Fanqie, they looked strong initially, but what made the difference for HuT was those camels and those upgrades. If they can at least escape with the crossbowmen, they can forge a new defense, taking a couple of Spring Elves back as well. In fact, all this focus on the Spring Elves has allowed for more fire from the crossbows. They are getting way more shots off, and the Spring Elves, they're just kind of like the tanks here. They aren't tanky, but they've generated threat. HuT's army, it's mostly gone, and not like gone with the wind, just flipping gone. So the question really is now, does Fanqie attack? Can Fanqie attack? HuT's still got some rallied camels to perhaps the wrong place. The battle is over, at least this one is. Yeah, they do notice, but they do lose a few camels in the process. So Fanqie, quite a bit of crossbowmen, got some buildings coming down here. Finally, some good old-fashioned barracks. City planner for England appears to be a Zerg, slowly creeping towards Pizza Hut. And at this rate, it won't be long now till he's part of the colonies. And if the Queen is watching, she might be interested in joining the Ironcast Discord. If she isn't watching, one might only assume she has access to the Age of Empires 4 beta right now. Very lucky Queen. HuT's getting a castle up, great position, smack center between those ridges. Logistically speaking, it's awful. It's on a hill and the tower basically comes to eye level from the side of invaders. It's a mosque as well. So maybe going to be collecting some relics and going for those sacred sites soon. We shall see, and I will be most delighted to see some sacred sites actually get used, because I haven't actually witnessed any sacred victories. HuT is moving out. The pattern of aggression continues. A knight scouting up ahead. Fanqie sees what HuT has and collides. A lot more crossbowmen, some Spring Elves, but the horsemen are getting outnumbered. Yes, send some horsemen over to the crossbowmen. HuT gets them on the run. Just sending a few to disrupt those shots is good enough for the entire front cavalry force of Fanqie to go down. Now the Spring Elves run, the crossbowmen still fire, but they are just out of position here, so the lancers get round them, stop them from being able to retreat. Maybe if they just stood there and fired, they'd overcome what's here and now, but there's more cavalry on the way. A few spearmen walking out the door of the barracks, but they will get floored. A few crossbows manage to make it somewhere more safe. Getting close to the tower for that attack speed bonus would be neat. However, all these buildings are once again exposed. The Spring Elves continue to fire, but their damage is really not enough in the numbers they have to thwart the... Oh, hello. I think the villagers have gathered too much wood. It's created a new hole into the base of Fanqie that HuT can exploit. Fanqie is going to have to shift over their defensive army to a position that hasn't seen that investment in defense. It's downtown Fanqie Town, where you better bring your own bow for protection. HuT here isn't just being a nuisance, they are also updating their information on positions and locations and assessing the economic state of their opponent. Fanqie's economy doesn't match up to HuT's, but they clearly are in a better shape than HuT had anticipated. We've got more spearmen out, backed up with crossbows, an excellent counter to what HuT has here. HuT's got themselves population capped. Can't cram any more people into those small model homes they don't even sleep in anyway. More and more of the map is getting built upon. HuT discovering a gold mine in the northern district. The Lancers will have no problem dispatching the villagers who make a desperate attempt to chop wood and make a wooden mech suit. Spearmen are here to protect, but it's not enough spearmen. Not for the whole lot of Lancers back there. 3 villagers pulling off the heist of the century. In their own little eyes, they're rich. 4 brave spearmen, suddenly not so brave. Oh, there's a monk around here. Oh, Jesus, they're screaming that poor villager. The soldiers got eliminated. Yeah, point those spring elves at anything. I mean, they don't know right from wrong. People don't kill people. Spring elves kill people. A lot of controversy in 1100 AD. For some reason, people want to continue to make this religious pilgrimage. It's a rite of passage, and the passage is through spring elf fire, undercover by complete daylight. There is a rather large army up here with a monk and a relic and some villagers. HuT is claiming the northern side of the map for themselves. Fankie's done an amazing job of defending, and they seem to be moving their defenses forward bit by bit through the center. Some misrallied units right there. And now this is kind of important because HuT's now claimed the north. They already had the south swear allegiance to them. Both spots had huge chunks of gold. You can literally see Fankie's new landmark within eyeshot of HuT's base, Wineguard Palace. Oh, hang on a minute. I don't think Fanqie knows HuT's armies to the north. They're storming down the mountain, and those spring elves are completely exposed just when Fanqie thinks they can attack. Oh, they're pulling back. Do they know? The army hasn't come down the mountain yet. And why are the spring elves setting up? And where are the spear going? Leadership in the ranks has dissolved. The spears are too far apart to defend the spring elves and crossbows. In goes HuT's cavalry and destroys those heavy wooden machines first of all. And maybe they're just gonna back off. Maybe they're pretty happy with that. Oh, and we can see why HuT's brought a mangonel. Maybe he wanted to spare it from the spring elves, but the spearmen torch it. No wait, it survives the ordeal. Even so, it seems like Fanqie, yet again, is coming slightly better off. Small victories are tallying up. They do get the mangonel just as it tries to retreat. 61 idle villagers for HuT. Must be some kind of worker shortage, and both sides suffering from wood shortages. I think we can finally say we've made it to late game, where the resources are beginning to dry up, and it's been a great match so far. It really doesn't matter who wins at this point. The environment has still lost. So, there's a trebuchet out now, possibly produced from Wineguard Palace. You can produce a man-at-arms, a longbowman, a spearman, a knightman, and a trebuchet man, one of each at the same time. HuT's at it again, no longer seeing any camels in the composition. Have them for a while, it's off the menu, but looks like villagers are gonna be back on the menu. Slipping by the fortifications and defenses, back through the forest gap with Fankie's poor army slowly trailing behind, not on their horse feet, but on their regular feet, all to take out Greg the Commoner. So we're back to raiding, and all I can think about is this is a technical stress test of Fankie's mental fortitude. The Lancers are free to roam around, and the spear, they will never catch up. I'm wondering, what is HuT's objective here? Is it to just draw attention away from the center of the map? Is it to try and split Fankie's forces up? Is it just to stall or scout, or a mixture of a bunch of things, because he can't finish the game like this? Again, HuT is still largely dominating in resources, but what if HuT comes back here first? He could take out those trebuchets and all the defenders would still be way behind. The castle now is being knocked down by those trebuchet. We do have a mangonel that's trying to do the same against Wingard Palace, but it's going to take a hell of a lot longer. Those things aren't built for taking out buildings as effectively. In goes some horsemen. But there are backup spearmen here just to defend. The trebuchet will fall, and that's still a decent trade. I mean, it's an exceptional trade. All of the lancers get away. We need those spear constantly in front. Oh no, the other spearman group left on follow go right to the north side of the map where there's 2 freaking castles up here. He really wants to defend that gold. Easily dispatches the spearman. Looks like HuT got their own trebuchet, but it is charged down by Fanqie. There's also a culverin in there. A really powerful anti-siege unit. They might try to snipe those enemy trebuchets, which there's 2 of them now. I'm not sure if that force is going to be adequate enough to defend against it. The 2 trebuchets working on the castle being repaired at the same time. The spearmen are... they're going away. They know that there is cavalry coming at the back here. But that just leaves this completely exposed from the front. HuT is challenging Fanqie in multiple places. And that is just the power of cavalry. The crossbows are doing an excellent job. Seems like Fanqie will remain with 1 trebuchet intact, but it's not enough to go against all of those villagers repairing the castle. Instead, Wingard Palace is falling down because HuT is the one that's constantly on the attack. We see camels are back on the menu. Down burns Wingard Palace, and at the back of Fanqie's army, is 2 bombards. That will fare better at trying to knock down this castle. Suddenly it's been, such a weapon race of siege technology. At the back of Fanqie's base, the spearmen running around chasing more horsemen. HuT went in for another attack, but immediately falls back. I think they are trying to draw them closer to the castle for that castle support. Villagers are here to drop another castle right here in the heat of combat. Fanqie's forces are depleting. They're getting overwhelmed, and those castles will really create a problem for Fanqie. Their offense was taking a long time just to try and pierce through 1 castle, let alone 2. Just thank God nobody is dying on that sacred site. At least these 2 generals can agree on some common ground. It's a long fight, and HuT is going for a 3rd castle. I don't like this translated version of the art of war. Fanqie will overcome the cavalry, but they cannot fight them and stop the villagers. HuT's army is depleted, but it's getting repleted thanks to a strong economy that has thrived through the ages. We're starting to see some longbowmen near the trebuchet. I think they're taking aim at the villagers. Progress is slowing down on that castle, but look what it has done to Fanqie's army. Look at the size of HuT's. It's a war of attrition, and HuT has attrished. Double mangonel, that's gonna add even more pain. Fanqie brought 2 bombards, which is great, but they need protection, and that 3rd castle is now up. Are we gonna see any more castle creep? Those bombards, they're gonna get torched. A few spearmen stand in the way, and any units coming from those barracks will have had roughly 15 seconds of being told which way to point the spear. Pro tip, it's the pointy end. Now get out there, God save the Queen, and put on your best mangonel helmet. At which point they're kicked out the barracks and skewered by 15 lancers. England back in the Dark Ages, only the plague this time is HuT. Fanqie might think they've gotten rid of them, but they will be back. And not with rainbows, but with siege. So, another thing that I forgot to mention, whilst the battle dies down and Fanqie tries to rebuild something that can stop HuT's attack, since he will be on the offensive now, is that cavalry has charge damage. So their first strike with their charge, you'll see them attack with their lancers, and then they'll pull out their sword. And maybe earlier, that's what we were seeing with HuT, going in and out of combat to try and get that bonus charge damage. We would have to go back and rewatch it, but I don't live in the past. Spearmen can also be told to stop moving, and what they'll do then is they'll brace for impact against cavalry. They'll hold out their spears in front of them, but it's kind of early days. The players aren't microing things quite as they should, so that's why we might not have seen that just yet. We've got the spears cramming in, and those buildings are just making it hard for some of that cavalry to be able to attack. That's perfect for the spearmen, great for any ranged units that are around, which I can only make out a few around the buildings. They've been destroyed by Fanqie's siege, and I think Fanqie is trading well, but just not well enough. Meanwhile, more buildings fall as HuT lets the trebuchet rip. Fanqie's lost a whole bunch of production buildings, and I notice at the back the villagers have been ordered to construct additional barracks. Which reminds me, looking at those longbowmen, they do have the ability to put down spikes in front of them, and I wonder how that would fare alongside spears. Some long distance wood cutting going on there for HuT. But yeah, even though longbowmen aren't great against armored or cavalry, those palings might kind of work. It's those good old RTS days where there feels like there's so much to explore and figure out. Sacred site being captured in the center, but the south and the northern one remain neutral. It should be pretty easy for HuT to hold on. I don't feel like they've lost ground during this war. But then again, Fanqie's been hammered hard and bounced back multiple times. There's some attacks going on down here. Wait a minute, when did this keep happen? Sneaky HuT. In comes another attack. Will be able to reach the bombards before the crossbow can really do anything against those lancers. The spears are on the opposite side. We need to get them in to some kind of military formation. Another keep is here, just planted right down next to the farms. It's almost like a keep surround. And like I said, Fanqie has bounced back multiple times, but it's kind of like HuT's unstoppable force, and Fanqie is a slightly movable object. That's the way the battle has felt for me. Fanqie charging with spearmen. This doesn't look healthy. They were holding torches. Were they going to go for the trebuchet? Either way, HuT intercepts, and it looks like it's murder time. Surely that wasn't a last-ditch effort from Fanqie. That was too small of a force for them to have left with the resources that they're currently piling. 2,700 food per minute, 700 wood. Spearmen only take food and wood to be born into this world, and a fully upgraded spearman will do a minimal of 22 bonus damage to cavalry on top of 8 damage base. And we're not talking about the blacksmith upgrades or anything like that, just in the Imperial age. And that is like pretty scary numbers when all you have is cavalry. And even scarier when you have all of these buildings built so close together, so it's possible that the cavalry might get surrounded, or at least it's easier for Fanqie to possibly surround that cavalry. Nonetheless, HuT is doing fine, and they don't need to dive in deep either. That's what the siege engines are for. They can destroy the buildings from a great range. As we see here, HuTs keep going down from the bombards, protected by the glorious spearmen. That's how we need to approach this. And this is quite a large fighting force Fanqie suddenly got. And it's all the wonderful things too. Spears, crossbows, siege, and everything nice. This is all it took to create the perfect little strategy. Until HuT came along and just kept on building castles all around the map. Fanqie charging with spears. Ooh, I don't know. They want to stop that Cavalry from sniping them bombards, but they'll have to charge deep, and the crossbows weren't supporting at the start of that fight. Now they're retreating backwards. Don't leave the crossbows at the front. Don't leave the crossbows at the front. The spears are supposed to be at the front, and in goes Hutt to charge them down, but straight into a choke point. The crossbows could sneak past this. No, wait, the spear are going into the town center. Orders have been mixed up somewhere. Clearly, we need to include a few seconds of interpreting orders into England's training time. On your screen, you might see a multi-cannon cannon. This can be crafted by both the English and the French. It's called a rebel de cas. Pardon my French. I don't think it's really going to do anything here, but as Marge Simpson might say, I just think it's neat. Fanqie continues to somehow endure, somehow still has units, buildings are burning all around, and they can't even go back to the pub and wait for all this to blow over. Another charge, but 3 mangonels they spot, and the spearmen quickly turn. They get a nice spot in a choke point, but it doesn't seem to do them a lot of good. Mangonels firing on the crossbows. They'll have to try and spread out to reduce the chances the projectiles hit, but it is match complete! England has been defeated. It is victory to the Abbasid dynasty. Congratulations, General Hutt. Unfortunate for General Fanqie. Now, this is where I would break down a match, but Age of Empires 4 is going to be released very soon, and there is something more important to say. If you'd like to see more casts, then I'm going to need your help, so come on down to the Ironcast Discord and get involved. I'd love to watch you play. For now, though, enjoy some highlights, and I hope to meet you soon, Commander.